Patriots. Welcome back to another episode of Appalachistan Prepper with me, your host, Old Core 1057. I have a lot of fun making these videos and talking about stuff I'm interested in, stuff I believe in. And, if you've watched any of the other videos, I got this little thing I do at the end. I say, demand liberty. And I believe that. I believe in liberty, believe in freedom. That's kind of a little tagline around here, demand liberty. And, there's other sayings and phrases that we've all heard that carry some weight to them. And one of those phrases I'm sure you've heard in your life is knowledge is power. Now, that's a very true statement. If you look back through history, any group that had knowledge, whether it be geographical, technological, scientific, they were usually able to dominate a group that did not have equal knowledge and certainly not superior knowledge. So having said that, I'm not going to show you any guns. I'm going to show you any tricks out in the field. I'm not going to talk about no radios. What we're going to talk about is the importance of having a hard copy physical library of resource material, books you can turn to as a base of knowledge. Now, we're living in a digital age. You're watching this probably no doubt on your phone or a laptop. And, we're taking full advantage of the convenience of modern technology and when we produce these videos. But the simple fact of it is we're living in a strange time. Our power grid is antiquated by any measure. We know there are computer viruses that other enemy nations have already inserted into our software and our power grid. We know historically events can happen in nature, such as the Carrington event. If you're not familiar with that, I won't go into it. Just look it up. Just look up the Carrington event and read about it. Should that same event happen today, we would immediately be thrown back into basically an 18th century lifestyle. There would be no electricity, period. There could be an EMP if there was some kind of a terrorist act or, God forbid, a nuclear exchange of some kind. We did a video on a Faraday cage, to protect yourself from a solar flare such as the Carrington event or even a terrorist or outright nuclear attack by a foreign nation that would create an EMP. Basically, our reliance on technology is a vulnerability. Now, one thing about it, when the lights go out and you can't Google whatever you're looking for, you can't go to YouTube and find out how to get clean water or treat a certain kind of injury or find out how something works, or even what maybe the founding fathers had to say to each other in their correspondence. The bottom line is, if you're going to be a grown-up human being, a man, you're going to be a husband, a father, a brother, or even just a caring son or daughter, you're going to have to take on some responsibility for yourself and for those around you. If you don't know how to do something, you're going to be at a disadvantage going up against somebody, or you're going to be reliant on maybe those who do have that knowledge. Now, you can say, well, I can't learn everything. I can't know everything. Well, no, we can't. But you don't have to be totally ignorant either. Our politicians today, both sides are treating our elections as if they're sports championships, like they're the Super Bowl or maybe the World Series. They really don't care about the aftermath. Just as long as my team wins is all I really care about. And what's good for our nation is falling by the wayside. And we're set up in a situation where our infrastructure is old and decrepit, although they allot millions and trillions of dollars of our tax dollars. It seems to be getting worse instead of better. Everything now is digitized. But when the electricity goes away, and when maybe they decide that well, we don't like the things you believe in. We're just going to cancel you. Social, how's it? Social credit scoring system, I think they call it in China. I mean, those folks are plugged into the matrix, and I've heard they actually will even commit suicide if the government just turns them off. So you got to have some knowledge, and you got to have some knowledge that's not reliant on a processor or the internet or anything that requires electricity. And if I can get the camera to pan around here a little bit, these are a few of my books. And I'll admit to you, these are my prized possessions, probably as much as anything I own. My collection of books has educated me. It's given me comfort. I like to think it's given me a certain degree of wisdom as I age and learn. And I just want to take the time in this video to make you realize that you need to have paper books with words on the pages. So, I know it's all convenient. I use my phone, I use my computer, we all do it. And I'm not condemning that, but you also need a backup. And you don't never want to get yourself in a position to where you got to take anybody's word for anything. You need to always be able to research, fact check for yourself. There's a lot of stuff that they're not telling you. And I'm not going down no big conspiracy theory rabbit hole on this. It's a simple fact. I mean, a lot of us look at alternative news sources, and some of the stuff we're seeing don't see the light of day on national media, maybe 5-6 weeks later, sometimes never, depending on the topic. Do I believe everything I read on a blog or a website? Absolutely not. Maybe even some of these books contain faulty information. At some point, you got to put a little faith and trust in, the people that wrote them, though. It's just the way it is. I mean, we accept what we learned in school because our teachers told us that. So anyway, I wanted to make a video to say, hey, y'all, if you ain't got no books, start buying books and read them. And here's the thing, too. You don't got to read. I'll give you an example. Right here's my stack of books that I have laid back for reference. Now, I take a few medications at my age. I'm not extremely sick or nothing. I'm not an authority on every pill that's out there. But if the grid were to go down and we got in some kind of terrible zombie apocalypse scenario, and we stumble upon some medication that maybe somebody needs, we need to be able to identify them. And so I bought myself this book, and it will tell you, at least a little bit of something about a whole lot of different kinds of medication. What they are, when you look at them, you can identify them, what they're used to treat. It may do you some good, maybe not. But I've got this to turn to. I don't sit around and read the pill book. I do not do that. But if I found a pill and I wanted to know what it was and I couldn't turn to the internet, I would turn to my pill book and see if I could find it in here. And maybe that knowledge could save a life. If not mine or a loved one, maybe a neighbor. That's one example. These books here, I have not read them cover to cover. These are reference books. Emergency War Surgery, Where There Is No Dentist, Where There Is No Doctor. By all accounts, these are very good manuals. They're given, to my understanding, to Peace Corps folks that go into third world nations. This is supposed to be a NATO publication, for what it's worth. I don't really plan on doing no emergency war surgery myself, but there's nothing wrong with having some reference. A lot of us grew up in a time when we would do our homework and we would turn through the encyclopedia. We'd go to the library, or if your family happened to have a set of encyclopedias, when you presented knowledge and they say, well, where'd that come from? And you said, well, I got it out of the encyclopedia. It was taken at face value. I mean, that was it. It came out of the encyclopedia. But the encyclopedia was our internet. And it was, A through Z. And imagine how much knowledge is out there on the internet compared to what was contained in 26 volumes of books back in those days. And yet, we managed to learn and grow. So books are important. They're extremely important. Being literate and being self-taught and knowledgeable. Like I said, these are some reference books I have for medical reference should I need them. I've never used them up to this point, but I feel much more comfortable having them to turn to should I need to. I'm just going to quickly go through, give you just an example of some of these topics that I have collected these books through the years, and I encourage you to do so too. I'll start over here, I guess. Here's some books that I think we should all have in our collection. Inside the VC and the MBA. A lot of knowledge in there. Even today, the Viet Cong or the North Vietnamese flag is flying over Saigon. Them guys was doing something right. One of the things I found in this book that I thought was extremely interesting was they were organized in 3-man cells, and they were relying on each other. While one was sleeping, one would be cooking, and the other one would be standing guard, and they would rotate duties, and they would take care. The 3 men would take care of themselves in that manner, and they would stay dispersed. We might take a lesson out of the page of the Viet Cong. In the future, we may need that. Rangers at War. Got that marked right there. Tells you what all they carried on that page. Tells you what them guys packed around with them in the jungle. Good reference. You can see 10 million videos what you ought to be carrying in your pack. Everybody's got a different opinion. So, turn to those guys. The Art of War, Sun Tzu. And if you ain't read it, it's mandatory. I say no more. This one is very interesting. This is basically the statistics of how wars are won. Traditionally, I believe it's a 3-to-1 ratio, attacker to a defender to be successful. There's a lot of good statistics and just a lot of good information to take into account when you understand conflict. And should there be a conflict that you're involved in, it will give you a better understanding of how to be successful. Here's a book that I think every man should have, whether you're a prepper or not. This is the pocket reference. It's got all kinds of conversions. The writing's about like in a New Testament. It's little, but it has got so much knowledge in it. I use this fairly regularly. It'll make conversions for you. It'll answer questions as to what types of glues are best. Just turn to that. Wire classes and insulation. I mean, stuff that you may end up having to have a little knowledge on that you may not have, to make a repair around a home or to maybe build something you're trying to build. You can turn to this and maybe get it right the first time, but it's very good. This is hard code data right here. This is not opinion. This is just hard code industrial standard data, and I've used it in a lot of the industries I've worked in. It's where I first discovered it, and I think everybody should have one at their house. This one here is a little bit ragged, but the Foxfire series, I know a lot of you are familiar with this. The Foxfire series talks about how the people lived here in Appalachistan, how they made their medicines and how they preserved their food and how they grew their food and how they made baskets and chairs and shoed horses and in all the old time ways. I remember my grandpa, he's born in 1919, and he had a lot of knowledge of the old time ways. And when we lost him, we lost all that. Now my dad, he has a lot of knowledge of the old time ways, but not as much as grandpa did. Now me, I know some of the old time ways myself, because I was raised up in it. I was raised up growing a garden, hoeing a garden, raising hogs, killing hogs, smoking meat, canning. We was just raised that way. But now my sons, they know less about that than I do. So you can see with each passing generation, we're actually losing the knowledge that will allow us to survive. We may know more about things that are intangible than ever before. But if you can't raise enough food to live on, what good is it to know how many megapixels your monitor is capable of? I mean, there's some stuff that are just basics. My grandpa, the one I talk about that was in the war, that was a POW, he told me, I'll never forget it. He said, when I was about 14, he said, son, he said, we heard about the Depression. People talked about it. He said, but we never could tell no difference. He said, we didn't have no money before the Depression. He said, but we had that little farm that we lived on, and we just kept doing what we'd always done. And he said, we never went without. He said, we grow a garden and harvest it. We would can when it come time to can. We would kill a few hogs in the winter. Said we'd dig a little ginseng, maybe trap some coons and muskrats, go down to the store, buy salt and flour with it. He said, we didn't go without anything. We lived fine. He said, now, but your other grandpa, talking about my dad's dad, he said he almost starved to death in those coal camps. And that's a true statement, because if you knew both of those men, and I knew both of them very well, spent time with both of them together, and their experience during the Depression was night and day. My dad's dad was a food hoarder, and it made an impression on him because he very nearly starved to death as a child during the Depression. But my other grandpa, my mother's father, they lived on a farm, and they were poor, but they sustained themselves on that farm. And they had to have the knowledge to do that. And that's the knowledge that we're losing slowly but surely. So the Foxfire series touches on the Appalachian ways of living. I recommend you get the whole series if you can. Pick them up when you can find them laying around, flea markets, and wherever you find them. You know, if you want to go out and buy the whole set, they're available, but they're highly recommended. Good knowledge in these. Now, here's a category of books. David's Toolkit, Citizen's Guide to Taking Out Heavy Weapons. I found that interesting read. Most people think Molotov cocktails work because they burn a tank down, and they don't. I'm not going to go any further than that, but Molotov cocktails just don't melt tanks down. They can stop a tank, but you got to know what you're doing with them. I found this book very interesting. It was a little dry to get started. The War of the Flea. This guy that wrote it hung out with Fidel Castro during the Cuban Revolution. I don't really like the guy because he's a big lefty, but what he had to say about successful guerrilla wars and unsuccessful guerrilla wars, very enlightening. And after I got into reading it a little bit, it really opened my eyes to some stuff that I couldn't see until I read this. Low intensity conflict, ambushes, guerrillas in the mist, the asymmetric warfare. America's been invaded. Any way you want to talk about it, from all kinds of different nationalities, and you never know. I mean, there's talk of America being balkanized. I don't know, about 2 years ago, they had that big movie, Civil War. You never know what you'll find yourself dealing with, but as a man, you got to be a little bit of a warrior, and you got to have a little bit of knowledge, and you're probably not going to find yourself in command of an armored division, but you may find yourself leading a group, a small group that, should we be invaded, you may decide to resist, but that's your decision to make. But you need to be knowledgeable in tactics. Here's a category of books that I think is important. Now, this is Rules for Anti-Radicals. This is a pro-gun book. Got to meet this guy that wrote it, Paul Vallone. But this was his answer to the original Rules for Radicals, and it's Saul Alinsky wrote this. Saul Alinsky wrote the original Rules for Radicals, and Paul Vallone just took on the Rules for Anti-Radicals. But I found it interesting that on Amazon they'll download you for free Rules for Radicals, but you got to buy Paul's book. They won't give it to you for free. So figure that out. Here talks about Antifa. You know, what it really is. This guy here, Andy No, he's a legit journalist. Forced upon the plane, Kenneth Stern. Gathering storm, America's militia threat, Morris Dees from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Well, Cora, why are you doing reading that commie propaganda crap? Because you got to know your enemy to beat your enemy, and that don't mean in a battle, but even in a political debate. When you're out there talking, you're never going to get an anti-gunner to say, you know what, you've convinced me, you're right. But what you may do is, as you debate your position with this person intelligently and calmly with facts, the people that are listening to the debate themselves, you may gain an ally there, because they're going to listen to the debate and they're going to say, you know, that guy right there makes more sense than that anti-gun guy. So, you know, I'm not going to take this channel on a big political bent. Obviously, I'm anti-communist, but I'm pro-America. You know, I'm an American, and you know, I said earlier that our political parties seem to have neglected what's best for our nation as a whole. They just simply want their team to win. And those of us out here who they only care about when they want our vote, you know, we're getting left behind. And you know, I hope that changes in the future, but I'm fearful that it won't, and that's why I've adopted a prepper lifestyle, because I'm afraid that our infrastructure could fail, our political system we could come to odds. There could be a lot of bad things happen here in America, and I want to be able to live through it, survive through it, take care of my family, my children, my grandchildren. You know, like I said, I'm not going to get on here and say, vote for this guy or vote for that guy, or, you know, you're wrong unless you believe the way I believe. I'm not going to do that. A lot of people I love, we disagree on certain things, and that's just the way it is in life. But we got to be knowledgeable. You got to know what other people think, because you know what? Maybe you find out they are right. Maybe if you're watching this channel, you come here to troll me, and you're listening to me talk right now, and there's something deep down in you that says, you know, maybe that guy's right. You know, I've changed. I know one thing, that as I've aged, my opinions have changed through the years, because I'm wiser. I've lived more life experience. So not agreeing with somebody doesn't mean you got to hate them or they're your enemy. Sometimes a good conversation, maybe a cold beer or a cup of coffee, and both of you can come away more knowledgeable and better people because of it. But you got to know what the people who disagree with you, you got to understand how they visualize you, how they view you. You know, Hillary says, you know, we're all a bunch of deplorables. You know, I mean, we could get into all that and get real, you know, reactionary and stuff. But, you know, it really don't matter who's in charge if you're starving, does it? Does it really matter who's in power if you end up homeless? Does it really matter if your party wins, if your kid graduates college and he's illiterate when he gets done? I mean, we need as a nation, we need to start looking for results and not just rhetoric. And we're getting all kinds of nifty little sound bites, and everybody's got a meme of the day, and we're having a big lot of fun with it, and my team won, and boy, we got the dirt on this other guy. But do you still have potholes in your roads? Do you still have homeless sleeping on the streets, or some of our fellow veterans eating out of dumpsters? Man, America can be so much more than it is. There's a reason why things are the way they are. And we need to start asking those questions and demanding answers to those questions. Not whether your team won or not, but what are the results? But I'm straying away. I'm digressing. Let me move on. Here's some more books. These are basically government manuals. You can get them. None of them are classified. You can get them Army Surplus Store, wherever. You know, Rifle Platoon and Squad. Professional knowledge from the Vietnam War. Guerrilla Warfare Special Forces Operation. technical single channel radio communications. You know, you can find these around. Soldier's Common Task. This tell you what you need to know to be a soldier. So, you know, if you're out there and things is, you know, full bore zombie apocalypse and you stumble up on an M240 and you don't know how to load it, if you hit one of these, it'll tell you how to do it. You might find yourself in possession of equipment that you don't know how to operate, but if you went to basic training, you would know how to operate it. So having these reference books, they don't take up no space, and build you a collection of them. Here's one of my favorites, near and dear to my heart. This is not the one I carried, because the one I carried ain't hardly got no cover left on it, but I carried this thing all over MCRD San Diego and Camp Pendleton 40 years ago. And they use this book to teach us what we need to know to be Marines. Everything from compass to first aid, and you know, it's a good book to have around. Here's one like anti-armor weapons. What are you going to do when you find yourself in possession of a bunch of rockets you don't know how to use safely? Should you have to do that? Now, you know, a little bit of Red Dawn, you know, kind of channeling that just a little bit, but oh, here's a good one, psychological operations. See, I mean, that book's powerful. It rendered me speechless for 2 seconds. But realize that's a real thing, folks, psychological operations. Another name for that is controlling the narrative. I'll let that go right there. Military operations in urbanized terrain. City fighting, different than out here in the jungles of Appalachistan. Tactical Operations Handbook, Fort Benning, Georgia. I bet we'd probably all learn a little something out of that. Now, like I said, I don't sit around and read this stuff for entertainment, but I have it to turn to as reference. Just a few more that I think are important. These are just types of books. Scouting and Patrolling, U.S. Marine Corps. You can download that and print it if you want to. Technical single channel radio communication techniques. You can print that off too. I printed that off. 3-hole punched it, made myself a binder. I use that for reference. Now, I've covered a lot of books, and that's not saying you got to have each and every one of these books. What I was trying to illustrate to you, Patriots, is there's different subject matter, different categories of books. I mean, this stuff here, I always read what they have to say about us. I'll admit, I'm not proud of it, but I have listened to NPR many, many times. Not because it gave me a warm fuzzy, but I wanted to hear what they were saying about us. You need to know how you're being perceived by what you perceive as opposition. I wish we wasn't looking at each other as opposition, because we are Americans, all of us, and I think if we could unite for the good of this nation, we would be a greater nation. But I just simply don't know if they're going to allow that to happen. Here's a category book that I recommend. Old hardback, dusty book. But you know what? The Founding Fathers communicated between each other. This one happens to be the complete writings of Thomas Paine. You know, we need to know what them guys were saying to each other, because if you know what they're saying to each other, you can defeat a lot of this nonsense that the communists are saying, well, that ain't what they meant. No, they say exactly what they meant in their correspondence to one another as they debated the issues of the day. But if you control the narrative, you don't got to tell the people that part of it. See what I'm getting at? You're going to have to do some research. You have to do some learning. You got to open your mind. And it's never going to be a job that's going to be done. You're never going to be finished. This channel, I started it because I wanted to pass along knowledge to the beginners. I was a young father, and I had 2 boys, and I raised them up to be the way I thought men should be. And but as every generation is, you know, they fall away just a little bit. And I thought, well, how am I going to get them to know these things should something happen to me? So I decided that I was going to start documenting, and part of it is this YouTube channel. I'm not here endorsing candidates and parties, but I will 100% say that I support American values, and part of that is the freedom to disagree. So I guess that's probably about enough on that. I just wanted you to realize. Oh wait, now some of my favorites still yet to come. I'm sorry. I got this one here. I'm going to speak my mind on this. Tell you what I believe in my heart. This right here is the Bible. I believe our founding fathers were Christians, and I believe they had morals and ethics. And we go around, beat our chest, and scream at the top of our lungs about our God-given liberties. And it's kind of hypocritical if you don't believe in God. So I recommend, if you ain't got a Bible, get you one. And I'll just let that be like that. Just you might be surprised. These books here I'm going to show you now are books that mean something special to me personally. They're instrumental in who I've become as a man. From being a boy, I bought this at a secondhand store when I was probably 10 years old. It's autobiography of A.A. Vandergrift in the Battle of Guadalcanal. He ended up being the commandant of the Marine Corps. When I read that book, I knew I was going to be a U.S. Marine. That was my goal. And I still have that book all these probably 45 years, 50 years later. Marine sniper, Carlos Hathcock. If you don't know about Gunny Hathcock, man, you need to, when you get off this video, Google Carlos Hathcock, because if you don't know about him, every American should know about Carlos Hathcock. Here are two. This one, cover's gone. This is a new one because the whole book got wore slap out because I've read them over and over. And that's Eugene B. Sledge with The Old Breed on Peleliu in Okinawa, and Robert Lakey's Helmet for My Pillow. Any of us should be proud to be able to follow in these men's footsteps. And if we could just be worthy of standing beside these guys and the men that fought these battles, that's a goal for any man. In my view, this is mandatory reading with The Old Breed and Helmet for My Pillow. So enough about that. We were soldiers once and young. Battle of the Idring Valley. You need to read this book. The movie's good, but there's a lot happened after the LZ X-ray. You need to find out what happened. I remember I came home from work, third shift one morning, and Galloway and Hal Moore were on the morning news program like Good Morning America or something like that, and they were talking about the book they wrote. And I promptly went right down to the first bookstore I could find and bought this. And it's a classic, and I recommend that you read it, because if you don't know what the American fighting man is capable of and what courage and spirit is, you'll find it in this book. A Rifleman Went to War, Herman McBride, World War I veteran. This was the foundational book that created the Marine Corps Scout Sniper program. You do any research on that, this is where it all began. You need to read it. Get you a copy of it if you can. Goodbye Darkness, William Manchester, another Marine from the Pacific. Excellent book. If you find a copy, buy it, read it. Now, I saved these guys till last, and we're gonna. I know I've been long-winded on this, but you got to realize, as a father, as a son, as a patriot, as a leader, as a mentor, you're going to have to be knowledgeable in multiple topics. I didn't include anything about gardening or canning because, it just goes on and on and on. Small engine repair. I mean, if you're going to be a patriotic leader of your family and a mentor to young people, you got to be a jack of all trades, man. So get up off the couch. But I want to give a special note to these guys, because these guys are very active right now. We do a lot on the radio stuff, and I don't give a lot of the technical, like the measurements and all the stuff, because this guy right here, man, I'm staying in my lane. I'm gonna stand back and tell you need to buy this book. NC Scout, brushbeater.com, Find him on the internet. He has the news website, American Partisan. He's got a brick and mortar store. He's the real deal. This guy's the real deal. So I refer anybody to ask me any radio questions, pretty much buy this book, and you'll know as much as I do. I'm simply showing you what I do to generate interest and curiosity to get you to go further into that. Also, NC Scout is what he goes by, but he's written The Guerrilla's Guide to Signals Intelligence. That's stuff you need to know, like how to keep them from finding you. And he had to know that stuff in Afghanistan and Iraq. So he's real deal, real world. He does this for a living, travels all around the country training people. I'm not going to steal that guy's thunder. I give him thumbs up. I hope he don't get mad we mentioned him on our channel. I don't see how he could. You know, any kind of mention is probably better than not. You know, I can't. But he's wrote several other books, so you know there's no such thing as bad publicity. That's what I was trying to get out, but. Sorry about that, folks. I'm trying to cram so much into this a short video, and I know it's not been short, but you know, I went to the trouble of digging these all off the shelf and kind of slightly organizing them, and I've read many of these, and I've got many more that I have read, but I do have a lot I simply use for reference. But the one thing you need to understand is I can touch them. I can touch them, and the words on them pages is going to be there tomorrow, whether electricity's on or not. You know, this is tangible. The digital age has made stuff so convenient, but you can't touch it. You can't hold it in your hand. You know, it's like, you know, in Ecclesiastes, Solomon said, life is like a vapor. It's just here and gone. And you hold that phone in your hand with access to the world's knowledge. But when they turn that cell phone tower off, you're blind. You can carry that phone with you for 100 years. And if it don't connect, you got nothing. And although this book, or this group of books, may just be a few kilobytes of information, when I get up in the morning, if we got electricity, or not, I can bring them out in the daylight and read the words on the pages. And unless they physically come and take them away from me, I'll have them forever. So I wanted to make you understand it's more than guns, it's more than mag dumps, it's more than who's got the coolest backpack or the lightest sleeping bag. You know, all that stuff's fun. We all enjoy dealing with it, and you know what's best and what should we do and all these things, and that's part of it. But you got to have base knowledge, friends. You got to have basic knowledge, and learning and growth never ends. I'm going to read as long as my eyes can focus on the words on the pages. And I'm going to buy books when they come out. And I'm going to learn from them. And then I'm going to get on my YouTube channel. I'm going to say, hey, man, let me pass this on to you, something I've learned, because I want to help you. Because I know you're a patriot just like I am. So I beat that long enough. I don't know how long this video ran. Feels like I've been talking for a while. But I don't care, because sometimes you can't shove it all into a short. So if you lose interest in this after 5 seconds, you know, man, I'm sorry, but some stuff just needs to be said. So I've got it off my heart, and I've got it off my mind. Buy books, read books, educate yourself. They're not going to tell you what they don't want you to know. You got to find that out for yourself, friends. And if you let them control the narrative, then you will forever be reacting to their initiative. We need to take control of the initiative and let them react to us going forward. So with that, it's OCOR 1057 signing off. I'm going to tell you the maximum effective range on the shoes is 0 meters. I ain't going to say nothing funny, because there ain't nothing funny about being ignorant. But if you're ignorant, it's on you, because there's mountains and mountains of books, and there's hundreds and thousands of people that will help you if you would just say, hey, man, I need some help. So if you remain ignorant, that's on you, and that's an excuse. But the maximum effective range of an excuse, 0 meters. Don't want to hear it. Don't feel sorry for you. Get your butt up off the couch. Open your eyes. Drink a cup of coffee. Dial in. Get yourself squared away. Semper Fi. That means always faithful, man. And if the people around you can't count on you, what good are you? So Semper Fi. Keep the faith. And always, always demand liberty.